Welcome back to the Sing Red podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Fulce. We have a bunch to talk about tonight, mostly because the main event is happening in 5 days. The president is going to be elected in just a couple days. November 5th. We have a new month starting 5 days away. We're going to have a new one, or we're going to have a repeat, but we're going to have somebody in the Oval Office that's not a decrepit old man falling apart in every which way. Today's going to be a prediction episode. I'm going to give you my predictions. I'm going to put it out there, my thoughts. Now, on the presidential election, not going to give you much because I'm going to be honest, I don't know much more than anybody else does when it comes to the secret machinations of swing state polling. It's pretty much a coin flip. My vibe in Texas is that it's going the way of President Trump. I'm going to think it's going the way of President Trump, but I don't know what's happening in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin. So I'm going to tell you how I think Texas is going to go. President Trump's going to win Texas. Kamala has spent a little bit of money here, not very much. I mean, it is straight up as what's going to be, and they're just trying to see how much a base amount of money is going to get them, and we're going to see. He's going to win Texas by about 3 points more than what the Senate person wins, maybe 4. With that said, the numbers I'm seeing behind the scenes, cannot share them with you, talking to people, Cruz is in a good spot. I think Cruz after early voting is going to be up about 7 points. Could be a little bit lower, could be a little bit higher. And it's basically going to come down to, do Democrats turn out on election day? And that's not their MO. So I think Cruz probably wins by about 9 points. That's a really high estimation based off of polling and everything else. I think Cruz could easily win by 7 to 9 points. Allred could be winning. If Allred wins, it's because a lot of people who typically vote Republican switched. I'm not seeing that. So I'm not predicting that is happening. That doesn't mean it's not happening. And if you're somebody who's knocking on doors for Cruz, keep knocking. You got to keep doing what you're doing. You have to pretend like talking about never happened. But, because you're still in the middle of it. But, that's where I'm at. There's a big race for Senate. La Montilla versus Hinojosa. La Montilla barely pulled it off. I think to the point. I think things are shifting enough down the valley where that's going to be up for grabs again. I don't know enough. I know enough about the valley to know that I don't know shit. The valley is the wild west of politics. It's really, people talk about the valley being about 5 years behind when it comes to like pop culture or just like whatever else. People say you go to San Antonio, and if you want to see what San Antonio looked like 5 years ago, go to the valley. It's pretty true. And when it comes to politics, it can be a little bit different. There's some machine politicking down there that doesn't make any sense to anybody outside of the valley. And there's some local politicking that doesn't make sense to anybody outside of that county. And I cannot predict anything. I can tell you is that's going to be an interesting one as results come in and as results have to get finalized. So I imagine regardless of the outcome, it's going to be close enough where there's going to be court cases involved and we might not know who represents that district for some time. The real interesting stuff is happening at the state house level. There's a lot of races happening. I'm going to tell you, I think Trump, he's overperforming with not college educated voters. No surprise to anybody. I think he's really he's doing a great job with those people, and I think he's turning those people out. Trump has traditionally done very poor with suburban women. If you look at what the Republican election is before involved, Republican women were a big part of that electorate. So if we look at how things break down now with how districts have been cut for the state house. Now, those districts are cut with 2 presidential elections in mind. Oh, there's some of that baked in. This isn't a district that was built in 2010 or whatever else. It's a district that was built in 2022. I still think we've lost some areas even more and had more people turned out in some suburban areas. I think HD 112, which is Angie Chin Button, I think HD 108 are going to be, and these are both the Dallas County races. I think they're going to be ones to look for. I think Angie is a fighter. I knocked on doors for her a few years ago, and the thing that caught my eye the most about her district was you would knock on a door, say that they voted for her 7, 6, 8, 5, 4, 3 years ago because she knocked on that door and she talked to them. That's not something you can really find in a poll or find in anything else. You're not gonna see that kind of crossover vote when the type of contact is that, and it's like baked in, and people remember it because they talk to her and they remember her. Angie has been a survivor, and I think she can survive this election cycle. I'm just worried. Morgan Meyer is in Highland Park. I've not worked his district, so I can't speak to the same way, which I can speak with Angie. But if he's been doing that kind of work, he's going to win that election. That said, doesn't matter how much of that work you do, that is the last percentage point. Now, that has kept Angie in her seat for the past 3 terms. She's won by some of the narrowest margins in Texas history, or at least recent Texas history. And that work over a decade has really paid off for her. Now, I don't know how these types of things are going to happen now. You never know. She's just going to kind of perpetually be, and Morgan Meyer's going to kind of perpetually be in limbo. They're going to have to spend some money, and they're going to have to do some work to get things across the finish line. I'm worried about Lujan, and I'm worried about Davia Harris. Lujan's in the San Antonio area. Caroline Harris, Davia is in Williamson County. Caroline's a great door knocker, and she's a great person. I've known her for a few years. I remember meeting her when she was in Senator Hughes' office and just talking with the both of them. She's a down to earth person, and as somebody who used to live in and has I was an intern in District 52 about 16 years ago. I think she's a great person to represent that area. But it's not super Republican, and it's one of those few areas in Texas that's getting more Democrat. I'm worried about her, but I also know she's doing the work to turn out those voters, and she's been doing the work for a while. I will be unsurprised if she survives or if she doesn't. Lujan is a similar position. These are races that are just kind of perpetually in limbo. We want them to win. I want Lujan to do well. He's won and lost that district a few times. That's a whole other history with back how it used to be divided. But I think Lujan is a great candidate. I think he's going to do well. I think he's going to pull it off. Another candidate in Bexar County, which is San Antonio, I'm worried about is Mark LaHood. Mark LaHood took out Steve Allison in the primary. He was backed by people like Governor Abbott and some of the folks. His brother's a Democrat, and I think that he had some voter history that was bad. But if you're a Republican, you need to be going out and supporting Mark LaHood. If you're a Democrat, you should probably be going out and support Mark LaHood because his candidate is off the rocker, and you need to be supporting Mark. He's a solid guy. That's one of the ones I'm the most concerned about. We also have some ones we could flip. Mostly looking at the one in Uvalde, who's being held by, or the Republicans being represented by McLaughlin. That's the greatest opportunity we have. There's another one down in the valley, the 74. Those are the two greatest Republican pickup opportunities on the House. Now we have who are doing the work to get that done. Some ones kind of on the edge that I'm concerned about. Lacey Hull in 135, and you never know what's going to happen in Harris County. We're not going to get results for a couple days. You have to kind of wait for stuff to come in. We're hoping that those will survive. I'm seeing a lot of money going to late. We're praying. And then we have a couple in Denton and Collin County. We have Bumgarner in 63, and we have Leach in 67. Now, those are both probably okay. In a big blue wave year, these guys are going to be in trouble. Now, Bumgarner's running against Michelle Bletchley, who I think previously was lieutenant governor a couple of years ago, and is trying to run back for that. She got redistricted out of her seat. I'm not particularly worried, but she has proven that she can win some elections sometimes. So, she has some money. That's always worrying. Jeff Leach. I've said that I'm not going to speak ill of people unless I think they've done something criminal. I like Jeff Leach. I think he's a smart guy. I think Jeff Leach is a smart guy. I think that he is a good attorney. I think he's a good representative. And I think he speaks well to the better angels of the Republican Party. But he made a huge mistake messaging Judge Slaughter about this death row case. Now, I told everybody last week they needed to drop it until after the election. Robert Robertson, you got to do what you have to do based off deadlines, but beyond that, drop it until after the election. And Representative Leach decided to ignore that and send a text message to a judge on the Court of Criminal Appeals who is not directly overseeing the case he's working on at the moment, but could very easily see it very soon. And Judge Michelle Slaughter, who is a former guest of this show and who will not be returning in January, reported it as an ex parte communication, which she should have done. Leach should not have messaged her, and he's acknowledged that. He recognized the error of his ways. There should probably be some more consequences to that. I'm not going to speak about what they should be. But he needs to face his consequences. He's up for re-election in a week after it happened. It's been very public that it happened. If he wins his re-election, I doubt he should be expelled. But if the House of Representatives by a 2/3 vote decides to do it, I'm not going to feel bad about it. And I like Representative Leach. If I lived in his district, I'd vote for him. If he lived in his district, I would vote for him in a primary against almost anybody else. He made a mistake. He's at least admitted to it, unlike some of the people on the other side. And if the people in his district think there should be consequences, then so be it. That's where I'm at with that situation. I don't feel comfortable talking about it this close to the election. We're going to start talking about the things that are happening in this beyond this election next week. I know you all been waiting for it. Going to start talking about the House races, or the Speaker of the House race. Going to start talking about possible committee chairmanships based off of who wins those races and this, that, and the other. Going to start talking about the prognostications of type of school choice bill that can get through the legislature. A lot of stuff is coming up. And there's a million things beyond that. But we just don't know who's going to be in office. We don't know what the proportions are going to be, whether how many rural versus suburban versus urban versus Republican versus Democrat versus so many things. And the subtext of the next one that we're going to be talking about throughout it is going to be what's going to happen in 2 years when 50 of the people who we're talking about on a regular basis are going to be running for something else, whether it's the state Senate, from the state House, or ag commissioner, governor, whatever the case may be. There's going to be a lot of people running for a lot of stuff, doing a lot of things, trying to make that happen. We're going to be talking about all of it over the next few months, and I'm welcoming you to join it. Like, subscribe on the YouTube channel, like, subscribe on the podcast platform that you're listening to. If you want to reach out, drop a comment on the YouTube algorithm. Helps people see what we're talking about. Shoot us an email. Whatever. Don't really care. I appreciate you listening. Hoping for a big red wave here in a few days. But one way or the other, I'll see you next week. I'll see you later. Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the Seeing Red podcast. It's always Texas politics and beyond. We present the facts and opinions. The Seeing Red podcast with your host, Andy Turner and Garrett Fulce. Thank you, and tune in next week. And please do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode.